Hello, this is Bad Bob the Astronomer. I think I'm in the frame all right, as far as I can tell. Straighten myself up just a little bit like this. It's kind of awkward. I just wanted to show my azalea off while I'm talking. I made a video approximately a month ago, or maybe a little more, up in the south-facing room, my house on the second story, that showed my Celestron 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope, the Next Star model, looking out the window. And I've had a chance to use it, I think, 3 different times outdoors since then on pretty good nights, and it works extremely well. I just thought I'd mention that I tried it out. I did mention in the original video that I would try it outside and see what how good the optics were. And the optics I would rate as being extremely good. I would estimate them to be as good probably as a really good Russian-made Maksutov Cassegrain telescope, approximately the same size, that I looked through at the start I did the astronomy club 3 years ago. It gave a view of the moon that was absolutely razor sharp at around 200 power. It showed the mountains and craters just spectacularly. And this telescope did the same thing at around 200 power with the Orion Premium Zoom eyepiece that I put into it. It gave a really good view under good seeing conditions. I'm reasonably certain I saw the polar cap on Mars really well. I could see several dark markings very clearly on Mars. I actually recorded which marking I saw. I forget what the name of it is now, but it's in the Observer's Handbook of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And let's see, I also saw Jupiter that night, and unfortunately the telescope hadn't quite reached thermal equilibrium with the outside air, which is about 25 degrees colder than inside my house. At the time I looked at Jupiter though, the telescope still worked well enough to show actual details within the cloud belts of Jupiter. They didn't look like just plain belts, so you could actually see notches and markings within them and stuff like that. It was really amazing. So overall the telescope works really well. The computer seems to work well in it. Like I was mentioning in the original video, the little red dot finder, the switch broke on it, but I think I'm going to try and see if Celestron will replace that for me free of charge. Let's see, what else was I going to say about it. As far as I could tell, I think I mentioned in the original video that I was concerned about reflections inside the light baffle that was in front of the eyepiece. And in actual practice, they don't seem to matter too much. One of the porch lights was on. I was outside looking, and it was shining right into the front of the telescope. And when I looked at Saturn through the eyepiece, the field of view still seemed to be fairly dark and uniform. It didn't seem to matter too much. So the baffling inside the C8 is probably fairly decent. That might be partly because the optics have low reflection coatings on them that are very good and tend to minimize stray reflections bouncing around off the glass surfaces and stuff like that. So that might have contributed to it. I'm still thinking of putting a baffle inside it, but it's not like I'm describing out of black cardboard. I don't think it's necessary to do that too soon. I already made one tube out of it, but it kind of crinkled up just a little bit after the glue dried. So I'm going to try gluing another one and sort of leaving it inside the thing to dry. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better. But I had a nice one made, so I'm going to try that, but it might take a while to get around to it. But the telescope is pretty good the way it is. What it really needs is that dew shield on the outside of the tube, which would be approximately maybe 18 to 20 inches long and a little bit larger in diameter than the tube, with black light, green light baffles inside. And that'll tend to keep stray light from coming from different areas of the sky down into the telescope tube. But like I was saying, I had the neighbor's porch light on. It seemed to shine right into the tube when I was looking at Saturn. It seemed to be alright. So the telescope basically is pretty good the way it is. I found that it was a little bit difficult to take outside. What I did was I took the orange tube off the mount with that one little bolt. You just use a hand knob on it to undo it, and it pops right off. You have to be careful what you're doing. I sort of wrap my arms underneath it like that, and then turn the knob like that, and then the tube just sort of plops into my arms and I can carry it outside. I guess it weighs around 12 pounds. It's not very heavy. But what I do is put the tube on the carpeted floor, and then I take the mounting, and the tripod legs fold up together right away, very easily, but they're still fairly stiff so that they're not flopping around. But I fold the tripod legs up so they're almost touching each other at the bottom, and then I can carry it out the door, down my porch steps without the sticking out sideways, put it down the ground where I want with the north leg facing north, the leg with the Celestron logo on it, the Celestron name, and then I pull the legs all the way out, set it securely, and then go in and get the tube, and then I clamp it on by holding it underneath like that, reaching under, clamping it. And if you do it in the twilight, you can look at it and make sure that the dovetail plate is right inside the notch as far as it'll go, right at the right location. So I try to set up in the daylight or the late daylight or the twilight if I can do it. And then so far I haven't actually tried the 3-star alignment yet. What I did was sort of get it fairly accurately aimed north. And then the clock drive, I took it out of hibernate, where it was already aligned in the upstairs room in the winter, and then set the date and time, and then I simply used the red dot finder with that little switch I described to you. I used the red dot finder simply to aim at the bright planets. I aimed at Jupiter. So far I've looked at Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, and the Moon, and the images were good in all of them. I looked at Saturn just a few days ago, I think it was, and Saturn's rings were very good. At around 200 power, you could easily see the Cassini division under moments of good seeing. It was not even a challenge to see the Cassini division with that telescope. It was really easy, and you could see some of the shadow. Like I could see the shadow of the rings on the planet. I could see the shadow of the planet on the far side of the rings. I could see the main cloud band of Saturn that looked sort of a grayish color. A year ago when I looked at it with my 20-inch, it had a distinct, very, very pronounced orangish brown color. It was just amazing. This year in both my 20-inch telescope and the new C8, it looks gray. So the only conclusion I can have is that probably the actual cloud band somehow changed color during that period of time. Saturn is an active planet with an active atmosphere, and it probably changed color, which is just amazing to see through a relatively small amateur telescope, something like that going on. So overall, it's a pretty good success. I also saw several moons of Saturn through the C8 when I was looking, and it was really amazing. But I think the most amazing thing of all was just looking at Mars. I could see the gibbous phase. I thought I noticed a cloud, a Martian cloud, a little white dot very close to the polar cap, but not like it was maybe about 20 degrees away around the edge of the planet. It was right at the edge of the planet, similar to the polar cap. It looked almost like another polar cap. It was sort of a small white dot. And by the way, with the 20-inch in my backyard, 20-inch Gregorian I have, at 150 power, the seeing was pretty bad. And all of a sudden I was looking at 150 power because of the bad seeing. I didn't want to use too much magnification. And then I noticed that one of the dark markings on Mars suddenly got really, really clear. There was about 3 or 4 seconds of really good seeing, and I could see all kinds of extremely subtle shadings within the dark marking. It was just amazing. I don't think an artist, even a good artist, could properly reproduce what I saw in decent detail. It was just amazing. Just the delicate structure of the marking was just awesome. It looked far more detailed than in the little map in the Observer's Handbook of the Astronomy Club. It was just amazing. And let's see, what else did I note? I thought I saw clouds another time. I think it was at the C8, but I'm not sure. I think it was, yeah. I thought I saw some white spots around the edge. I noticed that it looked a little different the next time because Mars has rotated with respect to the Earth at that time of the night. I won't go into detailed explanation about that. But I also had another look at Jupiter in the twilight just a few days ago. And I noticed that Jupiter in the twilight was, usually the seeing conditions are terrible and they weren't very good. There was a lot of air turbulence because it wasn't very high above the horizon. This is now the second day in June, so that was, I think, May the 30th that I was observing Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter. And I could still see like dark patches within the cloud bands of Jupiter, which was just amazing to be able to see that with a commercial telescope under adverse seeing conditions. I could only see 2 moons that night. The rest were either behind the planet or in front of it. So usually you could see 4 bright moons stringing out on either side of the planet, like little beads on a long string. It's really an amazing thing to see. And so that's what I've observed so far. Sometime soon I'm going to take the time and do a really good 3-star alignment right outside and see if I can detect some fairly faint galaxies and star clusters with it. I had a really good look at the globular star cluster M3 with my 20-inch and M5 both, and because of air turbulence, the clusters actually look better at 150 power. They look like little swarms of tiny little fireflies, and you could see the stars popping in and out of vision as I moved my eye around. It was just a beautiful sight. One of my neighbors looked through it. She said it's the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen in her life, was the view of the globular cluster M3 through my 20-inch backyard Gregorian telescope. So I think that the C8 under good conditions will not quite give as much light gathering power, but it'll still give pretty good views. And I really wanted a portable telescope with a computer in it. Now I'll be able to see all kinds of faint planetary nebulas and tiny galaxies and things like that I would, double stars, asteroids, all kinds of stuff that I would never have time to look through, try to find with a 20-inch telescope. By the way, what you're seeing beside me is an azalea that's been around for about 12 years in my household or my yard. It's in a large pot, as you can see, and it used to belong to my mother. She lived here until she was 96 years old and finally passed away. And I've kept the azalea going and some other plants, as you can see. So this is in my front yard now. It's just dazzling, and right now it's about, I guess, around 6:30 or 7 p.m. and the late afternoon sun is just striking the azalea with a lot of darkness behind it. Like the rest of the yard is mostly in shadow. So it's just a beautiful sight. So anyway, I thought that the azalea, I think the name of the actual azalea, the actual plant itself is either called Northern Lights or Rosy Lights. It's one or the other, I'm not sure. And I got it at Stevensville Garden Gallery about 12 years ago. So I think they still sell them there, I'm not sure. But that's one of the premier places around here to buy rhododendrons and azaleas. So this is particularly spectacular, this one. So anyway, I've probably talked about enough, but I wanted to let everybody know that watches YouTube videos about astronomy that the new C8 Celestron Nexstar I bought seems to have extremely good optics, especially for a commercial telescope that doesn't cost very much. When I consider that for a sale price, brand new, $1,000, I got an 8-inch telescope, really good optics, easily portable, fairly well light baffled, all collimated beautifully with a really good computer in it that'll aim at about something like 40,000 different objects just automatically, just with a minimum amount of setup time, and it's easy enough that I could even transport it in my car if I wanted to pretty easily. So I just thought I'd mention it worked out pretty well. You just have to be careful when you're setting it up not to bash the corrector plate and stuff like that, and make sure you don't damage the eyepiece. The eyepiece I've got in there is a 2-inch star diagonal, and it tends to rotate easily if it gets loose, and the thing could flop over, kind of flop downwards. So you have to watch that. Make sure the ring is tight all the time if you're using something like that. But with that in there, it's still like the telescope will still aim overhead, and I could use 2-inch eyepieces. I thought I'd mention that it does work all right as far as I can tell. I don't know whether I tried to aim overhead or not. I can't remember, but it should theoretically do it. It looks like it will. Let's see, what else was I thinking of? There was something else I was going to mention. I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, when I was looking through the telescope just a few days ago, on May the 30th, I noticed that the area near the center of the field seemed to get blurry and black out, and I thought there might be some dirt on the zoom eyepiece, and I looked at it and it seemed to be okay. So I think what happened is probably a little bit of dirt on the star diagonal, a little 45-degree mirror that sends out the light at 90 degrees so you can get a comfortable eyepiece position. I haven't checked it out yet, but I think there's some dirt in there, and another possibility is a spider could have got under the thing and built a little spider web, and the little spider might be sitting right in there now. Because I looked through I don't think it's my eyes playing tricks on me, because I looked through the 20-inch the next night and there was no problem like that at all. And looking through the 20-inch, it's a lot bigger, and there's like no spider in the way. I checked it. So that's probably what happened. So, hello. That beautiful sound you just heard was my next door neighbor driving away in her antique MG sports car. Just a fantastic piece of equipment.